Thank you all for joining this very important discussion this evening on school safety and facilities. My name is Suvarna Bhopale. I'm a trustee with the Belmont-Redwood Shore School District. I've been serving for the past 9 years, and I'm so pleased to have us joined tonight by our special guest, Alan Sarver, who is a trustee with the Sequoia Union High School District. And he's been serving on the Sequoia board for the past 13 years, so a lot of experience in the room. The format of tonight's meeting is that we will have some prepared question and answers based upon the questions that all of you asked during the registration. Please also feel free to use the chat feature to ask any additional questions that might arise as we're going through the presentation. And after the initial Q&A, we'll reserve the balance of the time for any additional questions from our audience. This is a conversation, certainly not a lecture, so we welcome your participation. And we have a lot to cover tonight, a lot of very interesting and exciting topics, not just for our parents, but specifically our students, who I mentioned earlier are the ones who will be the largest beneficiaries of what we're talking about tonight. So let's jump right into our first question. So Alan, would you please share the status of something which is on a lot of people's minds, has been on their minds for probably the past 10 years, the Four Corners project? Could you share some details about how it would benefit the Belmont, Redwood Shores, San Carlos, and Redwood City communities and students?
Sure thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is share 3 websites in the chat that I will be getting to support everything, and then I'm going to go share my screen and kind of move through some of those to talk to it. I do need you to enable screen sharing for me if you can. Maybe if I'm co-host or.
Okay, you should be able to screen share.
Okay, great. There we go. All right. So the Four Corners is something that it derives its name from the 4 agencies that are participating in it: the City of Belmont, the City of San Carlos, the Sequoia Union High School District, and San Carlos Elementary School District. And interestingly enough, Joan Dentler, when she was wearing a different hat many years ago working for Jerry Hill's office, was part of Jerry really kind of gave a good kick in the pants to this multi-agency effort to really get it going and make sure the partnership was started. And it's looking at traffic flow along Alameda from the San Carlos border to Ralston Avenue. And there are 2 big parts to what happens, or one small part is that there will be a traffic signal placed at Carlmont Drive in Alameda, which is right across the street from Lunardi's, where that parking lot is. The traffic studies have indicated that the traffic flow needs that. And then the majority of the work is going to go along the front of the Carlmont High School facing on Alameda. Now, we've been working on this for close to a decade that the agencies have been working together. And I and Carrie Dubois have been on the committee representing the Sequoia Union High School District all along, with 4 different superintendents over that period of time. And there have been a number of changes in each of the other agencies. But we've had a very serious ongoing traffic study, traffic engineering recommendations, substantial community outreach and feedback. And we have come up with this kind of working operation to it. The big news this summer is that the state budget that has been approved includes $3.5 million toward this project from the state. And I know that Kevin Mullen, Assemblymember Mullen, was a very strong proponent of making sure that showed up in the budget. I believe that Senator Becker was also pretty actively in support of that work. And the impacts that it has along that corridor and for Carmont High School are the implementation of 3 traffic circles. 2 of them will go where there are currently 4-way stops, which is the foot of El Verano Way at Alameda and the foot of Chula Vista at Alameda. Both of those lead into entrances to Carmont High School. And then the third one is not a stop on Alameda currently, but it is probably the most clumsy, dangerous part of accessing the campus, where the street bends very sharply at Cranfield Avenue going into San Carlos, and the San Carlos end entrance to Carmont High School is also at that same corner. It's very dangerous to be making left turns off of Alameda into the campus. It's very dangerous to be making left turns coming out of the campus onto Alameda. It is dangerous and difficult for residents of Cranfield Avenue to get out into the street, either right or left turn. And it is dangerous for students that have parked or been dropped off up along Club to come walking down and cross traffic into the campus. And that's an area that has desperately needed cleaning up. With these traffic circles, the flow of traffic would be increased through each of the intersections, but the overall rate of speed of vehicles would be slowed down. So it becomes safer with a higher throughput, and there will be specific new pedestrian crossings implemented that are going to be safe and safer at that rate. The traffic circles are engineered to allow buses and trucks, other large vehicles among vehicular traffic, to be able to make U-turns or complete turns around the circle. They're big enough for that. There is a median put in place all along both of those blocks between the traffic circles, so there will not be pedestrian jaywalking going through there. The crossing will be restricted to those crossings. There will be new cuts made into the Carmont campus and into the Tierra Linda Middle School campus. For Tierra Linda, that will allow them for the first time to have 2 access points, one from Dartmouth Avenue in San Carlos and one from Alameda, and they'll be able to put together a one-way traffic flow that will be safer to get in and out of there. For Carmont, this new cut will come in at the junior parking lot, which is behind the football field, behind the Scott's gym. It will replace the current San Carlos end entrance and get it out of this traffic circle entirely. And it will connect to the traffic flow that currently exists from that southernmost entrance and allow staff and school buses to drive around the campus. But for parents doing a drop-off, they will come in here, be right in the junior lot where they'll be able to drop off and exit. And basically, if you're accessing the campus from the El Verano Way end, you can come in, drop off as you currently do at the softball field end of things, come back out and either go right, go straight around the traffic circle up El Verano, or go in a circle around the traffic circle and out to Ralston. Likewise, if you come in through the Chula Vista entrance, you come into the senior parking lot where you can drop off as you have before, or if you're a senior with a parking permit, you can park. You come out, you have the choice of turning right toward San Carlos, going straight on Chula Vista toward downtown, or going left around the circle toward Ralston. If you come in through the San Carlos end, you will need to come from the Chula Vista Drive area. So if you're coming from San Carlos, you would come through this traffic circle, go past the traffic circle at Chula Vista, use it as a U-turn, come in. You will come back out that same entrance and go to the Cranfield traffic circle, where you can go into San Carlos or take the circle to go back toward either downtown Belmont or toward Ralston. So the flow will be, smooth and safe. And in all of these locations, vehicles in the traffic circle already would have right of way. So there is a certain learning curve for drivers who are used to stop signs, who've never driven traffic circles. But in community after community across the country, we have seen that it is safer once they are implemented and people take the time to go through that brief learning curve. With the money that has come through the budget, and that was just approved in the month of July, hot off the presses, the next steps will be community meetings, detailed planning, and an actual launch of the project. The City of Belmont is the lead agency with strong support from the City of San Carlos. And they have a website, which is the first thing that I put in the chat. And I need to. Go over to, that is the project website. And the plan we were looking at is what you get when you click on the conceptual plans button. And this study will have updates about the meetings that the city will be driving, but they'll be bringing all 4 agencies together and members of the community to give your input and your feedback. I am hopeful. Everything we've heard so far is that once shovels go in the ground, it should be on the order of a year until all of it is fully complete. But I expect that the majority of kind of the traffic disrupting work of the traffic circles should be something that can be accomplished over the course of a summer when that gets done.
So Alan, that sounds really exciting. I know that, thanks, by the way, for that comprehensive presentation. I think everyone has a great overview. I know that having 2 kids at Carlmont, they are very excited about this, and hearing that, this could be done by the start of the next school year is quite exciting. Thank you for that. Let's go ahead and switch gears to our next topic. So we recently heard some exciting news about the Samtrans offering student passes. Could you provide some details about that?
Absolutely. So this is the Samtrans site for the Youth Unlimited program. And that pass was unveiled for the second half of the last school year. And it was basically free transit available to students who would qualify for the free and reduced lunch program. So socioeconomically disadvantaged students according to that standard criterion. And there was a lot of uptake on that. It was an extremely successful program. It was offered across the county, and the passes that were available were gobbled up. And the new news in July is that the Samtrans board has authorized that for the 2022-2023 school year to be fully available for all socioeconomically disadvantaged students across the entire county for the full school year. And so all of the school districts are working in coordination with the San Mateo County Office of Education and Samtrans to really try to drive toward 100% uptake. What we really want to see in the schools is that every eligible student gets a bus pass in their hands. It not only makes it much more accessible for them to get to school safely, it makes it much more affordable. It takes cars out of the large mess that goes on at our schools in the morning and the afternoon, which makes it safer and healthier for more of our students to be able to walk to school, ride their bikes to school, skateboard or other mobility that they take to school. We are hoping to very much reduce the number of single family automobiles that are coming and going from schools. Basically, every bus that we can fill up takes 50 or more cars out of the mix. And we want to see lots of Samtrans buses fully implemented, bringing our kids to school. And it also, one of the things we're very excited about is it really starts more and more of our youth on the pathway to becoming lifetime transit users, which is going to be an ongoing impact on all of the health and safety issues and very much on the environment, which is more and more on our minds all the time as we watch more and more fires beginning to pop up once again.
Absolutely. And along those same lines, talking about the environment, talking about buses, I have had some good conversations with you about Sequoia's district's plan to obtain electric school buses. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, and this is another area, and that's the third link I put in there. There is a group called calstart.org, which is very actively supporting and helping school districts in bringing their electric bus fleets online. And that is kind of logistics and resources to be supportive to access and make great use of the funding that is available both from the federal government and from the state to really jumpstart our electric bus program. The Sequoia Union High School District is currently has applied for a grant to support getting 6 electric buses into our fleet as soon as possible. And we have a bus yard and maintenance office that is in operation at Mills Avenue, which is near Woodside Road and Highway 101, that we were able to acquire and set up that site as part of our Measure A bond that was passed in 2014. That site, among other things, has substantial solar paneling in place so that the electricity available there is essentially cost-free to the district and taxpayers after the investment that was initially made in the solar paneling. But those buses, we are in the process of qualifying for a grant through the state program. The great news is that more grant funding for electric buses for school districts was approved as part of the state budget in July, and more funding is coming from the federal government. And it sounds like just in the past couple of days, a breakthrough is finally happening in the large environmental improvement program that President Biden has been pushing. So we're very hopeful that even more funding is going to come through. The attitude in the Sequoia district is that every public agency needs to be a leader in this effort, and we want to get our bus fleet electrified as rapidly as we possibly can. It makes for massive environmental positive impacts. It's going to make it easier for us to have more buses in the mix, leading to all those benefits of fewer cars, safer and healthier for our students, and better for the environment. And so we are trying to get there as rapidly as possible. And I look very much forward to several of our buses coming online in the next few years.
Well, it's great to hear that Sequoia is a leader in protecting our environment, thinking progressively and moving forward. So great to hear that news as well. Finally, having followed the Sequoia board meetings for probably the past 2 years, there's been a lot of discussion about a proposed bond for the November 2022 election. Could you provide some details about the status of that?
Yes, and I don't have formal information to share on that, so I'll stop sharing the screen and just will rejoin everybody together. But the deadline for adding bond measures to the ballot for the November election is August 12th. And so any school district that is considering a bond measure must pass a resolution declaring the intention to place the bond on the ballot before August 12th. For the Sequoia Union High School District, our opportunity to do that is our first board meeting of the coming school year, which is next Wednesday, August 3rd. The two key elements of that board meeting are going to be an update presentation about our facilities master planning and the resolution to place the bond measure on the ballot. We've had facilities master planning teams operating for the last several months at each of our sites, and a master team operating district-wide to bring all of that information together. And that includes our administrative leaders, our district-wide facilities management, our staff members, students, parents, community members, all looking to put together a robust listing of the critical things that our sites need at this time so that we can prioritize them and have a size of what we really need to go for. And the leading things really going into our needs really revolve around heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, famously known as HVAC, which plays two very key roles in the current situation. One is the air purification capabilities. We've invested a lot during the course of the COVID pandemic, but more and better is critical not only for the ongoing pandemic, but for things that we now really have to have our eyes open to as potential additional pandemics that may come in the future. And the second thing, though, is very much around global warming. We are clearly having significantly more extremely hot days every fall and every spring. And those not only directly impact student and staff health and well-being, but directly impact learning abilities and the effectiveness of the education that we've got and their comfort at school. And so we dramatically need to do things. So there, not only is it a very large district-wide battery of improvements that go classroom by classroom, but we need significant electrical infrastructure there. And many of our buildings are really reaching the limit of what kind of work you can do at that level in the buildings without needing to really, in many cases, tear something down and start over. Most of our school campuses are 60+ years old, and Sequoia High School itself is a historical landmark at well over 100 years old. And so the work for doing this is very, very substantial. Going with that is a recognition that many of these older classrooms are very small, very limited in their capabilities, and the methods of education have really advanced greatly since those buildings were built. So our classrooms that we're building now are larger and they're more flexible. large classrooms can be subdivided by movable partitions that are really effectively soundproof, as well as writable and really good resources in the classroom. We have breakout capabilities in the classrooms, movement, better visibility, better technology built in. So we are going to be converting many of our old blocky small classrooms to newer spaces there. On Carmont campus, a real likely place for that would be the old T wing up at the top of the school, which is the third side of the beautiful new wing that has the 2-story S and U buildings and that antiquated T wing where nothing works very well. So that is likely to be torn down and built as a modern 2-story facility that is of the same caliber of the other 2 sides of the quad. Other places throughout the campus will also need that kind of work. The third major area that we're looking at is bringing modern multi-use student unions onto the campus that can really provide better state-of-the-art eating, hangout, study, multi-resource kind of facilities that'll improve the student experience dramatically. And so we are looking with that bond at a range between $14 and $19 per year per $100,000 of assessed evaluation of the home. And with the really high costs of housing that have been going on, the median new home or home sale price has been hanging out a little under $2 million across the county. And that seems to be finally kind of leveling out and perhaps coming down a bit with all of the interest rate hikes. So if you take that as a maximum for general working purposes and the $19, you're talking about a little under $400 a year per newly sold home. But it's based on the assessed value. So the large majority of our residents across the county have got assessed values that were established many years ago. And they may have a home that is $500,000 or under. So if you look at that $14 and under $500,000, you know, you're talking about $70 a year to get all of that value out there. So that's the kind of range we're looking at. What we want to do is balance being able to do the most and the highest priority work that we can for our quality of education for our students, while keeping the impact to the minimum we can for our community. And our district has been blessed by a community that really supports education, has strongly supported bond measures in the past. And it is time for us to have the next one. The maintenance, upkeep, and updating of our schools is something that goes on continuously. It needs to be there and in the works as long as we are continuing to have students to serve. So we are looking very forward to getting that going. And we are eager to have community members step forward and become part of the bond team. Because once the bond goes on the ballot measure, the school district cannot spend public funds advocating in favor of it. That needs to be done by a community-led committee. And the school district can only supply information about what it's about.
Terrific. Thank you so much for that. So just to remind folks, so August 3rd is the next board meeting when the board will consider a resolution, decide the amount that would be on the ballot resolution. And definitely, if you're interested in being part of that committee, I'm sure the board would be interested in having your help. We only have about 2 minutes left, and I want to respect everyone's time. If there are any questions from those who are participants in this Zoom, please feel free to put them in the chat. We do have one question from a student. How will the traffic at Carlmont be affected by the change in the start time and end times this school year?
One of the things that we always do in the high school district is we coordinate with all of the K-8 districts that feed into us to make sure that we have offsets to the time of transportation impacts. So typically the middle schools and the elementary schools will also be offset, the youngest kids starting earliest. And so those offsets will be there. With school starting a bit later, typically that might be a little bit closer to the tail end of the morning business rush hour. So it might be a little bit lighter traffic, but a lot of it is going to depend on how many more kids we can get onto buses, how many more kids take other forms of active transportation rather than just riding in one parent's car to get there. If you got to ride in a car, please carpool.
Good message for us to end on. I know the time flew by here. We do appreciate everyone's time and participation. And if you're interested, we can have a part 2 of this for anyone who's interested. I want to thank Alan so much for your time and your expertise. Thank everyone for being here tonight. And we will follow up for sure on all of these exciting projects. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.